is a speckle park, and I think it's Wattle Grove Hall of Fame, over 1,100 kilos. Hey, Marty Barnyard, bring us all the action from the main arena there. And Australia's global clean and green status is in large part due to our tight biosecurity restrictions. Dr. Allison Crook leads the charge for biosecurity in Queensland as the state's chief vet and as General Manager of Animal Biosecurity and Welfare. She also was the person who managed the impact of the COVID pandemic on livestock. Great to see you here, Dr. Crook. How do you do?
I'm doing very well, thank you, and hopefully I'm dressed appropriately. And do you need to see my shoes?
You look very good. You look like you know what you're doing around animals, and as you should. You were recognised, in fact, on Australia Day this year with a Public Service Medal for your great work around COVID. But I think many people wouldn't even know how COVID affected livestock.
Sure. And look, thank you very much for acknowledging the recognition. It was very special, and I'm honoured to have received that. I guess the award for me was about recognising the public service work that goes on in the background so diligently and so quietly, just to support things that are happening. So while COVID, yes, very much was a human health pandemic, there were immediately considerations in the animal health world and indeed in all aspects of the supply chain that we had to manage. So considerations around health, but also considerations around welfare. So myself and my team, our role was putting in place the frameworks to support that, to make sure that we were working with our health colleagues, but also making sure that everything was happening that needed to be happening so there were no surprises.
You have a very complex job looking after emergency outbreaks, preparation for any sort of challenge that could occur, new trade agreements with key markets, the likes of the UK and the EU. How does your role factor in biosecurity to all of those shifting plates?
Sure. So my responsibility is for the Queensland herd. So that's what I think about, what's going on in the Queensland herd and about our health status and the evidence that we can provide for that health status that supports any negotiations, any trade agreements that are being put in place. So while I'm not at those tables, I'm very much putting in place the work and the assurances that need to be in place to ensure that that can happen.
And Alison, finally, yesterday you spoke to a large group of beef producers about biosecurity preparedness. Could you give us some of the top tips that you shared yesterday that our audience can be aware of?
Sure. So one of my key points was that there's no such thing as zero risk when it comes to biosecurity. And as part of that, we had a good discussion around, well, so what does that mean for particularly a producer? And I guess some of the key take-home messages there were about producers need to make themselves aware around the signs of emergency animal diseases and what to do. The first thing about that is not to panic, because there's plenty of support available. We've got really robust and strong frameworks and systems in place to help. So things like having the emergency animal disease hotline number in people's phones, having their registered biosecurity entity details up to date so we can contact people, and making sure that all of their NLIS transactions are accurate and up to date as well.
Queensland's Chief Vet, thanks for joining us, Dr. Allison Crook.
Thank you.
Well, our next guest regularly walks the halls of Parliament in Canberra on behalf of our industry. He's educating, persuading and advocating